I think what we're seeing in China is relatively weak recovery from the pandemic. Last year, there was tremendous disruption in China's economy due to various lockdowns in a number of big cities, including in Shanghai. And this year, with the relaxation of COVID restrictions, the expectations had been for a big rebound. But what we're seeing is a much weaker recovery, quite sluggish economic conditions. And that is acting also as a factor holding back inflation pressures because of overcapacity and weak demand. And the problems of China are across many different sectors. Industrial production is growing quite slowly. Construction is weak. And more recently, we've also seen retail sales are growing at a very weak rate.
In terms of a very weak inflation rate, does that mean that Chinese people are still holding back their purchasing power? What do you think about it, Rajiv?
I think that's true, that we are seeing that Chinese households are being cautious for a number of reasons. Consumer confidence is relatively low, and there's a lot of uncertainty about the outlook. For example, in the residential construction sector, a number of property developers in the private sector have failed. There's also a lot of difficulties among some of the big property developers in the private sector. And all of these news about the failure of developers, weak industrial production are making consumers uncertain. And also another factor that's increasingly been of focus is that the youth unemployment rate in China has risen to high levels, which also means that the younger population, the population that normally would be quite high spenders, are also very cautious because of the high youth unemployment rate.
Your opinion about how this, the economic sluggish movement from economic powerhouse such as China will also affect the Asia-Pacific economies in general?
I think what we're seeing this year is that many other Asian economies, such as South Korea, Japan, and also Southeast Asian countries, have seen very weak exports. And exports for many countries have actually been declining in the first half of this year because of weakness in the key export markets, including in Western Europe, but also in mainland China. What we've seen is that exports of countries like South Korea and also some Southeast Asian countries to mainland China have actually been falling at quite a high rate. And that's because Chinese demand has still remained very weak. There hasn't been a significant upturn in demand for key imports such as computer components or broader electronic products, electrical goods, which are important manufacturers of many countries in Southeast Asia and also for South Korea, for Japan. But the demand hasn't really recovered significantly. And that continued weakness in the Chinese market is acting as a drag on many other Asian economies.
And also, Rajiv, this has been our curiosity about that. Today coincides with the release of the newest iPhone series in the US, the iPhone 15. And in China, it has been really marched with issue of banning the use of iPhone in the mainland China, which also said to be one of the cause of China's sluggish economy. How do you generally see it?
I think the big picture is where there is technological differences between the US and China. And that is creating some, in the area of technology, some decoupling between the US and China in that particular area of technology products, which include semiconductors and other advanced electronic products. So I think in that area, there is increasing friction, and it doesn't seem like that's going to stop in the near future. So I think we should expect continued differences in the at least near-term outlook because of this technological competition or strategic competition between these two big economies. But broadly, I would say US-China trade is still pretty strong across many other sectors.
Yeah. And in that particular, how has the trade war between United States and China impacted China's economies in general? Who loses more?
I think when we look at the big picture of US-China trade, the total trade value actually reached a record high in 2022. So the total integration of trade between the US economy and the Chinese economy is still moving ahead at a relatively good rate. The problems come in specific areas such as advanced technology, and there we've seen increasing differences between the two countries and decoupling in certain strategic areas. So I think in that sense, there are some ongoing problems that are affecting bilateral trade and are also affecting global supply chains that provide many of the important minerals and critical components for those areas in high technology.